Aloha, friends, and thanks for tuning in. My name is Sarah Slater Snyder, and I'm here today to talk to you about basically 3 steps to live a life that you don't need a vacation from. I'm so excited to share with you today, and just a little bit about me. So, for those who don't know me, I'm a licensed therapist, a registered yoga teacher, and an elite embodiment coach. I moved to Hawaii about 20 years ago and just fell in love with like the slowed down island lifestyle and just the culture here. I love it. And I got my master's in social work. I worked as a high school counselor for about 12 years and a psychology teacher as well as yoga teacher. And I started my private practice for my therapy business about 3 years ago, right before the pandemic hit. And through my work, through my like 15 plus years in this field of mental health and education, and wellness, I feel like I have really come to um, just realize the power of integrating neuroscience and psychology and yoga to align body, mind, and spirit. Um, and so I've really been working to create a very innovative and powerful way to integrate these 3 things, because I really feel and have witnessed the power and the impact that that can have, in terms of changing and shifting the trajectory of our daily experience. And so that's really why I'm here today. That's why I wanted to share with you guys that just to teach a little bit about how I've helped my clients to sort of pave their own path to paradise, by really teaching them how to journey inward and to reconnect essentially to align body, mind, and spirit through my elite embodiment practices. And I want to talk about that for a second because um, one of my clients asked me recently, like, Sarah, what is this elite embodiment thing? What is that all about? And I really appreciated that question because it occurred to me I haven't really addressed that. Embodiment literally means feeling safe and at home in your own body, right? So I'm definitely very aware that the term elite sort of carries like a connotation of superiority, which is not obviously what I'm going for. However, I chose this word very intentionally because I believe that we're all striving to live as our highest and wisest self. And really, we're striving for self-actualization. We're striving, if you remember Maslow, Abraham Maslow, who is a psychologist, and his hierarchy of needs, right? He sort of called this process of working or moving towards realizing our fullest potential. He called that self-actualization. And in our quest to become self-actualized, Maslow basically proposed that, I don't know if you've ever seen his pyramid of needs, but at the bottom, he says we have to start at the base. We have to fulfill our basic physiological needs for food and water and shelter and just those basic things that allow us to sustain our life, before we can move up the pyramid, essentially. So self-actualization is at the top. So he basically says, we have to fulfill our base level needs before we then can move on to fulfill our safety needs, which, if you think about what in your life creates a sense of safety, it's both, we're talking physical safety, but also emotional safety, right? And so structure, routine, predictability, knowing what's next, those are things that do create a sense of safety and a sense of predictability, right? Security too, obviously, we have a way to be able to sort of support ourselves and to be able to take care of those physiological needs. And so those are some of the safety needs. Then we kind of move up the pyramid and we can then start to fulfill our our love and belongingness needs, right? And our belonging needs are essentially we're talking belonging to a family, to a community, to a group, could be a group of friends, could be a group of women like we have here with our women's wellness circle, even a sense of love in terms of and belonging to a partnership, right? We're talking we feel a sense of purpose and connection in our life. And then once those needs are met, we then can move up the pyramid to move on to our STEAM needs. right? And once our esteem needs, we're talking like self-esteem. So these are essentially feeling proud of like our achievements, our awards, who we are, our talents, right? Having some sort of recognition for those things. And finally, once we've gotten through those esteem needs, then he says we can work our way to self-actualization, which is really just like realizing our fullest potential. It's being in the flow. It's being sort of having that feeling, that sense of purpose, right? A sense of ease and grace in our day-to-day existence. And not everybody necessarily achieves self-actualization, but we're constantly working towards that, right? We're constantly striving towards that. And so my mission, like part of why I created the Women's Wellness Circle and part of why I have shifted into this role of and as an elite embodiment coach, right? I see elite embodiment as the process of coming home to your highest and wisest self. And I do that, and we do that through practices that align our body, mind, and spirit while building self-awareness, self-regulation, self-acceptance, emotional intelligence, right? And a sense of internal balance. So as an elite embodiment coach, again, I integrate neuroscience, psychology, and yoga to teach high performing women who are feeling just mentally exhausted, right? I work with so many women who feel that mental exhaustion, sometimes the physical exhaustion too, of all the things that they're doing and all the things that they feel like they have to be for others. And I teach them how to optimize their brain and their body so that they can create their own fully embodied paradise, right? And really to embrace or to own their highest, most elite self. And that's what I mean by elite embodiment. We are striving or working towards a place of stepping into our power as our highest and wisest self, our most elite self. And so as I mentioned, like I've worked with, hundreds of women, girls and women really over the last decade, and I observe the same themes again and again and again with my female clients. So I'm talking, and I'm sure this will resonate with many of you, I'm talking about themes of overgiving, right? Like overgiving their time, their energy to care for others, often at the expense of their own self-care, overworking to the point of burnout, because sometimes those perfectionistic tendencies just keep them stuck in the cycle of anxiety. We're talking about sort of this overdoing because nobody taught them that who they are, just being themselves is enough. Also this like over apologizing. I see that and I myself have been guilty of that, of over apologizing because we're taught not to take up others' time and space or energy, right? And often this overcommitting, right? I see this a lot also in women that almost like we're saying yes to everything, like you're a yes woman, right? And we feel like we can't say no, whether it's, at work or at home. We feel like we sometimes this comes from being raised as a people pleaser, but we feel like we can't speak up for ourselves, we can't speak our truth, we have trouble advocating for ourselves or setting boundaries to honor our needs because we're so focused on other people's needs. And I'll be teaching and talking about codependency and how that connects to people pleasing at the end of the month when we do my live on our mental health book club, Codependent No More. But those are some of the themes that I see, right? And so I think what I find is that most people, we're all doing the best that we can, but many of us are working like tirelessly day in and day out to the point of burnout. And we're like, you think about why are you working so hard? Why do we push ourselves so hard in our careers, right? For many of us, it's because, we're working so that we can take a vacation. But does that really make sense? Right? Like, I mean, I get it. Don't get me wrong. I believe in absolutely vacationing in paradise. I live in paradise. But while Hawaii is this incredible place to visit and to live, if you're spending like 95% of your life just hustling so that you can finally slow down to enjoy the remaining like 5% of your life on vacation, what's the point, right? What we what we want, and I want to set you straight here, and I want to just share a little bit. Like life doesn't have to feel that hard. It doesn't have to feel like a constant hustle. Um, my what I teach is that paradise is not an external destination that you save for. It is actually an embodied experience that you create and you carry within you. And that's actually why in Hawaii, I don't know how many of you are familiar with this, like we're the Aloha state, but one of the mottos here in Hawaii is live aloha. And what that means, aloha is a greeting, but it also is a way of life. It's like a vibe that locals sort of embody and share very liberally here. And Imagine if you could embody that. You could embody that aloha, you could embody that paradise within yourself if you had the tools, right? It changes everything. And to be honest, when I visit the mainland, I'm always like blown away just by how many people in our culture distract themselves with external luxury, whether it's like the fancy new car or the newly renovated house or the expensive destination vacations. And there's no judgment here. Like, I absolutely believe in taking, sort of like enjoying external pleasures. But you're kidding yourself if you believe that these external sources of happiness are going to sustainably fulfill you. And I think that's why so many people end up feeling burned out, and they're constantly like waiting for the next thing in order to be, I'll be happy when. I hear that a lot. I'll be happy when da 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 when this happens, right? And the reality is that no, we don't want to wait till then to be happy. We want to create our happiness right now. And so the good news is that experiencing like a luxury escape to paradise without leaving your home or spending your savings is actually possible. It just requires you to stop hustling and instead to slow down and journey inward to reconnect to your highest and wisest elite self. So, in truth, like, you hold the key. You hold the key to actually accessing your inner sanctuary. And the best part is that, your honestly, like, your inner paradise actually holds more tranquility and more radiance and sustainable happiness and fulfillment than any tropical vacation, because that's short term, right? We want to be proactive, not reactive. We want to create and build tools and a sense of actual like regulation within your system so that you embody that feeling of paradise 24/7, or even if it's not 24/7, most of the time, right? Imagine if that was accessible to you all the time. Like, you always had access to it because you carried it within you. And so the trick is that you have to learn how to turn your attention inward rather than outward to really elevate body, mind, and spirit so that you can sort of achieve some of these elite levels, which allow you then to sort of embody your luxury paradise vibes, right? And to create a life that you don't need an escape from. That's what we're going for. And so this is actually why I developed my embodied paradise methodology, because I wanted to teach powerhouse women who I am honestly like surrounded by. I'm so blessed. And I work with them. Many of them are my dearest friends, but I want to help them stop hustling through this exhaustion and overwhelm and instead create a sense of internal and external balance, really through, again, integrating neuroscience, psychology, and yoga to help them tap into their highest potential and move towards self-actualization by owning the elite within. So here are my 3 steps to help you live a life that you don't need a vacation from. Okay, so the first step, right? The first step is that we're going to create our own paradise. And this allows you essentially to transform your exhausted reactivity, which many of us are struggling with, into your own inner sanctuary. And we're going to do this really by building a sense of expansive nervous system regulation through what I call experiential somatic soothing. So I have a toolkit of somatic soothing strategies that I will teach you. And what these do is they rewire your brain and your body to optimize sleep and stress and health so that you can operate at your highest potential. We're talking in a matter of weeks, not years. So I'll give you some examples, right? So examples of somatic soothing include grounding techniques, right? Simple grounding techniques, simple mindfulness practices. My favorites, like the gem of it all that I love and I love teaching, are restorative yoga and yoga nidra. All of these practices take you out of this exhausted reactivity and into a place of calm, surrender, ease, and grace. And if this, is interesting to you or appeals to you, I have a free yoga nidra recording and a restorative yoga poses on my resources page for my website. It's aboundingcircles.com, I think /resources. And if you're within my Women's Wellness Facebook group, under the guide section, I have restorative yoga practices. I have yoga nidra, sample yoga nidras, where I also break down and explain what that's all about. Like, I have a lot of free resources for you, but I'm telling you, these soothing somatic strategies work. They work to create your own paradise. They work to actually help you to embody your own sort of inner sanctuary and to hold that energy and hold that space of ease and grace and flow where we're not constantly in like survival mode, right? And honestly, it's very powerful. So that's kind of the first step, is that we have to allow and teach our body to regulate itself on sort of a like from a place of actually like our nervous system. We have to learn how to regulate that. And then as we then can sort of step into the next step. So that was step one. Step two is what a process I call conscious reframing. Like we know that our thoughts and our feelings, excuse me, our thoughts impact our feelings, which in turn guide our actions, right? We know this from, a psychological perspective. um, Conscious reframing actually frees you from the cycle of negative self-talk and teaches you these sustainable belief shifting skills so that you can wake up every day feeling more empowered, focused, and aware of opportunities that otherwise would just be buried by overwhelm and anxiety, right? And so conscious reframing is like a dual action science-backed approach. It combines metacognition with non-judgmental awareness, and it literally stops anticipatory anxiety in its tracks. And it rewires our thinking patterns by like awakening our commitment to our highest self, with really like what I call fearless courage and empowered conviction to speak your truth. So that you can actually, in doing this, you're rewiring your thinking patterns, which then boosts your confidence, it boosts your connection, sustains happiness, right? And really optimizes your performance as the elite version of yourself. Okay, so what is anticipatory anxiety, right? So I see this a lot, and I've done some lives in my women's wellness circle on sort of this conscious reframing process where I talked about the different common cognitive distortions that we all experience and how to reframe them. But I'll give you an example. So anticipatory anxiety is essentially when we're like anticipating, we're telling a story about the future before it's actually happened. Another common thought distortion that I see a lot is all or nothing thinking. It's basically like going to these extremes, believing it's got to be all this or nothing. Literally, it's very black and white, polarized thinking. So a common example is like the belief of if I make a mistake, I'm a failure, right? So we're seeing literally essentially it's a fixed mindset where we are believing basically that like a mistake means that we are a failure. And in reality, no, that's not actually what's going on here. So what we have to do is the first step sort of in our conscious reframing process is that we have to like learn to name and observe our thoughts without judgment. That's key, without judgment. How many of us, right, are often judging or criticizing ourselves? It's constant sometimes. That's the job of the irrational emotional mind, is to criticize ourselves. But what we want to do is rather than be in that space, we actually want to shift out of the fixed mindset into a growth mindset. So rather than the belief that like mistakes mean that we're a failure. No, we lean into the idea that a mistake is part of the process of learning. So a mistake is just an opportunity to learn and to grow. So we reframe, right? So step one is we learn to sort of observe and name the thought without judgment. And this is where we have to kind of know what are those cognitive distortions and be able to identify those so we can name them and catch them. And then we actually have to reframe them. And so this, to be honest, is why I developed and created my radical self-love affirmation cards. I'm obsessed with these, you guys. Like they truly are, I think, powerful tools. The using affirmations are such a powerful tool for reframing, right? To challenge and change some of those like limiting beliefs that we have. And I'll give you an example. So like, let me just pull a couple of these. So here's a great one. I am learning from every experience. Mistakes are just learning opportunities. Imagine if you could actually believe that, if you held that belief and you saw this, beautiful card every day in your bathroom mirror, you held this up for yourself. You honored yourself by repeating this, right? Here's another one. I am courageous and brave, and this matters more than being perfect. I love this one so much, right? This is huge. So imagine if we focused on bravery over perfection, right? So I sell these on my website as well under the store page. And if you are a part of any of my containers, my programs, you'll receive these radical self-love cards as part of that package. But this is sort of how conscious reframing works. It's a process. And it's really a beautiful one because once you learn these skills, you have them for life. They are long-term sustainable ways to shift your limiting sort of mindset. And once we've done that, so we've moved through now step one, creating our own paradise. Step two, conscious reframing. Step three is actually utilizing these elite embodiment practices to give yourself permission to elevate your body, mind, and spirit by creating like pukas of time. That's what I call it. A puka is a Hawaiian word for like space or like a little hole or a pocket of time and space. So once we give ourselves permission, because this is what I find. What I find is that so many women, including myself at times, are in go, 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 go mode. And we are constantly just keeping ourselves busy and overcommitted and overwhelmed and all the things. And we're not giving ourselves time and space to connect with ourselves, right? So part of elite embodiment is giving yourself permission to create pukas of time and space in your life for you to be able to connect with your highest self and to embrace the process of radical self-love as a daily practice, right? So I have sort of a whole host of these elite embodiment practices that essentially hit the pause button on your daily experience so you can like cut through all that external chaos and noise of the world, this like wacky world that we live in right now, and you can tap into this deep recognition of your highest self, right? And again, let's keep in mind, like elite embodiment is actually this process of coming home to your highest and wisest self. So it really helps you to create more authentic presence, to a sense of greater fulfillment and really meaning in your daily experience, and to feel more like sort of the calm, conscious, elite version of yourself, right? I think that's really what we're all striving for. And again, that's why I'm terming or naming this elite embodiment. And so I'll give you some examples of really simple embodiment practices that can help you to create a life that you don't need a vacation from. So one is breath awareness or breath control, right? Again, in my women's wellness circle, in our group, there is a whole live on breath control. And within my Abounding Woman program, same thing. I have a whole 2 hour actually training that's all centered around breath work and understanding the power of using our breath to regulate our nervous system and to be able to maintain sort of this like get out of that exhaustive reactivity and into more of like a proactive sort of respond, like we can respond rather than react essentially, right? But we have to be able to access and use our breath to remain calm, to hold that space. So there's lots of different breathwork techniques that I teach. The simplest, my favorite, is just belly breathing. 2 hands on the belly, taking deep breaths, right? Rather than being in our chest, when we're in chest breathing, we're in that like really sort of like shallow breath. That's our anxiety response. We don't want to be there in our breath. We want to be in our belly. So I literally have my clients like put 2 hands on their belly and take deep breaths. Close the eyes, tap into yourself, your highest self. Let's do that now. Just take a moment and do a few deep belly breaths. I like to, breathe in if you can through your nose and imagine that the breath is traveling down the spine, filling the belly, almost like it's filling the belly like a balloon. And as we exhale, we release the breath. You can almost visualize the breath releasing, the belly falling. As you exhale, you can just let go of any stress or tension or anything that's just been sort of weighing you down, right? With each exhale breath, we release, we let it go. So taking a few more belly breaths, and I like to use what's called equal breathing. So we essentially match the inhale and the exhale. We inhale for a count of 4, fill the belly, and exhale for that same count of 4. Do that a few times, and that is such a grounding practice, right? Oops, my phone slipped. Sorry, guys. So that is a hugely grounding practice. What I want to also just share with you, though, so you can stay there if that feels good. Take a few more belly breaths, right? But what I also want to share is such a simple practice of, I call this my I am meditation. And literally, just as we inhale, we take a deep breath, mentally repeat the word I. As we exhale, we mentally repeat the word am. I, on the inhale, am on the exhale. Do that a few times, just mentally repeating I am. Notice what that feels like for yourself, right? no more doing. We're just practicing the art of being, right? We're practicing what it feels like to be, in our body, to be connected to our highest self. We don't have to do anything or be anything. We're just practicing being, existing, breathing. That's it. It's so simple. Sometimes we make it so complicated, right? Just breathing in, I, breathing out, am, right? So simple. There's so many more of these elite embodiment practices. Some of my other favorites, which I teach, have to do with intention setting, gratitude practices, right? So again, like these, we know from research that these are evidence-based strategies that actually boost happiness. They reduce anxiety. Like these are sort of game-changing, simple strategies, but they make such a difference. And so if you want to know more, if you're interested in hearing a little bit more about sort of how my embodied paradise method can help you to create a life that you don't need a vacation from, so that you can actually hold that energy, that live aloha energy, of like an embodied paradise within you, holding that inner sanctuary within, I want you to just comment paradise below. I will reach out to you. We can schedule a free performance pathway call where we'll just check in. We'll see if maybe there are ways that we can work together. And I want to share, there's so many ways that you can work with me, whether it's through just a one-on-one. I prefer these like 30-day intensives where we work together through a series of sessions together. And I'll teach you my various strategies and tools so that you are really ready to tackle whatever is on your plate and to have, again, sort of create time and space for yourself to hold and create your own paradise, to use and practice these elite embodiment strategies, to consciously reframe some of the limiting beliefs that you may have. One of the other ways that you can also access my tools is through my Abounding Woman program. So if you rather than working one-on-one, you love connecting with a group of women, of like-minded women, there's so much power in that. My Abounding Woman program essentially is going to have, it's a self-paced course, but it also has this weekly live women's circle component so that you can really learn the tools to build your emotional intelligence, but also your emotional regulation, your nervous system regulation. And you will gain and get literally like a library of my elite embodiment practices so you can live a life that you don't need a vacation from. And just imagine, you guys, if you could really experience paradise anytime you want, rather than having to like travel to Hawaii, once a year, just because you have the tools to access that inner sanctuary. That's what I hope and want to be able to support you in and help you to create. Please comment and let me know if that interests you, or just reach out, send me a message, right? There's no harm, but I would love just to be able to connect and talk with you. We can see if it's a good fit. Because this is truly what I'm passionate about, and this is why I'm here, and this is what I'm wanting to offer. So I appreciate those of you who have tuned in, and if you're catching the replay of this, that's great too. Let me know if there's questions that you have, right? Comment paradise below, and let's connect. All right, I hope you guys have a beautiful Wednesday, or whatever day it is for you in your time zone. Hope you have a beautiful day. Aloha.